Right. The fires are tended, and it is time for Big Brother Canada 9's Week 2 HOH and nominations episode coverage here on Super Mader Brothers Podcasting. I'm Dave Mader, joined with Jaemeel Robinson as we continue our third episode of this season and our coverage of this. We welcome. And how are you doing tonight, Jaemeel?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're a bit here a little bit later than I expected. I originally thought this was going to air at 8 on Global in Canada here, but it actually aired at 9. I think maybe The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, I'm not sure which one, may have played a part in this somehow.
The Bachelor was a 3-hour episode, I believe.
Yeah, I think it bumped us a little hour later tonight, but we're here nonetheless here on Super Mader Brothers Podcasting a little bit later to talk about this week's HOH and the two nominees as we saw Team Destiny continue their streak as they won tonight's archery/balance competition, which led to Austin becoming the HOH and putting up Kiefer and Josh. So that's kind of like the quick summary of what happened, but we're going to kind of dive into this and break it all down, even talk about a little bit maybe about the live feeds a little bit, at least with a little bit we know. Neither Jaemeel and I are fully versed, but we know some things. So we're going to talk about those things in different sections here. But Jaemeel, this episode overall, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about this course in the game and this turn of events?
I thought it would have a little bit more excitement happening, and it seemed like very little like intense game talk. I thought there would be more, especially for like the first HOH. I thought people would be scrambling a little bit more, but with the twist, the way that they have the show structured, you have basically half the house that is immune to any type of like eviction scenario, and then so you have like 5 individuals remaining, and like they're kind of locked up in what we assume is alliances, so there's like slim pickings, really slim pickings.
Yeah, well, if we want to like look at this in a survivor standpoint, this is like the tribe here in the Defenders that have lost 2 immunity challenges in a row here effectively. And but it's like a one world scenario where they can all kind of throw each other under the bus here, and there's a little bit of they can mingle with the other side. There's definitely some cross alliances, and at the same time they know that this isn't going to last forever, that they're not locked into it, and much like the different team twists that they've done in the US version, it's kind of playing out in a very similar fashion here, I think. Although we saw here that they tried to bait them tonight with with this temptation of getting the meal or being able to punish the other side to get advantages, and it was kind of fun to watch them debate it, and even those who were willing to maybe go a little bit more cutthroat, but ultimately it doesn't really play out maybe the way we would hope it could in maybe a hypothetical situation.
The moment that they sent LaToya, I knew that it was going to be pretty much, straight on the nose. It was going to be a share situation.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could deal with LaToya coming in, and she was like, "If you do this, this is the rest of the game," and she was coming at them, and I'd be like, "Okay, listen, I'm not messing with you, LaToya."
You telling me that you wouldn't try to push the team to do steal?
I think I definitely sympathize with like Tara and some of the others who were willing to do the steal, and I think that maybe I would be pushing for it, but I think that they're right that it's a long game. I think that being this cutthroat in this scenario where you live side by side and you could be at the in the crosshairs of somebody else later on, especially if they know you're the one who was pushing for it. He was the one that was pushing for you guys not to be on slop all week. That was him. I didn't want to go along with it, right? That's easily something that can come back to bite you. And it doesn't really gain you much for the amount of capital you're going to spend to do it. So I think ultimately it is the right thing. But I wish we could see more of those moves. But there's just not enough incentive here. There's too much to if you're smart about it, I think. Unless you can convince them, well, it's all in good fun. It's all in the game. If you can convince everybody of that narrative, maybe. But I think that's sometimes a harder thing to do than we think.
I kind of wish that they just did a have-not competition where it was like it doesn't even have to be long. It could be as long as this segment, and um, people are individuals have to go for certain things. They can get food for the house, or they can get advantages for themselves. It might be a little bit too early for something like that, especially going to the POV. But stuff like that, just to kind of butt heads and to have people talking about who did that, who went for the advantage, who put us in a position for slop. Like if they had a challenge, just my scenario. Let's say it's a Sudoku puzzle, right? I know it's not impressive, but like you can replace Sudoku with any other challenge. And is you can either go for something that could be a luxury for the house, you can go where it can cause for the other team, one member of the team will have to go on slop, um, or you can go for an advantage for yourself, right? So at the end of the competition, there's going to be a count, and you're going to say, well, team defender has two people that need to go on slop, and the whole household got 5 items, luxury items, and then you know that's it. And then so you're doing the math in your head. You're like, wait, if two people go on a slop and we have 5 luxury things, that means out of 7 we have what 6 people who sorry yeah 6 people who went for advantages. Who are those 6 people? And just to start questioning even in your own team, because then you don't have the entire team going for the luxury prize. You don't have the entire team going for slop for the other team. It just like, who doesn't feel safe?
Right. Oh, I think that there's always that. Like, who doesn't feel safe, or who appears not to feel like they're in danger, and who's way too paranoid. And I think that there's always going to be those two extremes, and people are always going to be looking for what those two extremes are. In the case of who is the most paranoid, clearly, like Kiefer and Josh tonight were portrayed as our two, like, because they were very worried. Especially Kiefer was very troubled by the fact that Austin won this HOH tonight, because he never talked game with her. I have no sympathy for this argument. I have no sympathy for whenever it's made. Like you have to talk. There's only 13 other people in that house with you. Like if you can't find time to talk game with all of them, even if it's like varying degrees of realness, then you're lazy, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Quite frankly, I guess that there's always going to be somebody at the bottom of that hierarchy for you, people that you're closer to versus you're not as close to. There's always going to be that, but you have to have you don't want to be the one that's obviously like, oh no, and don't be telling everybody that too, because then they're going to feed into it. So it's almost like that fear is contagious. People will be like, yeah, Kiefer's worried. Oh yeah, he doesn't. And then Austin kind of will feel that too, even if she wasn't already, and that will just take on its own. So Kiefer, I don't feel, did himself any favors here. But before we get into that, I want to the challenge itself. Did you like this challenge tonight?
No, I'm not a fan. I feel like this is for the first HOH. This shouldn't be the competition.
It was very interesting. I thought, like, so you had to hold this it was like an art, it looked like archery, but it was really just a balance competition. We had to put the balls on there. There were balls puns galore. I don't know if you picked up on this, Jaemeel, but there were a lot of ball puns, a lot about Austin.
As a student of Jeff Probst, of course I noticed all the ball puns, all of them.
Come on in, guys.
Yeah, coming in with all the balls. Austin was saying, you don't realize how heavy the balls are. There was balls puns galore. Josh was on the balls. There was all the balls. I just thought but I did think this competition, like just at the beginning when they had the 2 shots of like all the defenders and all the Destiny kind of standing there in like a series of poses, like in this pose holding it up. This looked cool for a moment. Mm-hmm. The moment passed, but for a moment I was like, this looked pretty cool.
I just feel like 2 kind of physical challenges back to back just seems. I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan, especially if it's going to be the first HOH. You've already given a team an advantage. Now you have like a second advantage now for a team that, in more or less what we can see in terms of balance, seems a lot more physical than the other one, right? That has the disadvantage currently.
Yeah, you think it maybe okay. I get your point that a mental competition seems more fitting here. This is the second of the
Or a carnival game.
carnival game, a game of chance, sure. Something that's maybe a little bit more skill based, or even have a degree of randomness. I get that point, but they went for something more physical. I guess but I think that ties into this team thing, and I think that it's almost like they're creating a mechanism to justify keeping the strong players around instead of targeting the strong players early, which I guess could be the approach if.
But how many strong players have been eliminated in the last seasons of Big Brother?
Never. It's never done because it's always the fear is you're going to take the shot, but then they're going to turn around, win HOH, and put you up. And
we're in a scenario where they're protecting the strong, because they're afraid that they're going to be eliminated. If they were in teams, I don't think Jetson or any of the strong people would be up for elimination. I think the people that would be looking to vote out are the people that would have been voted out.
Very, very, very possible here.
It's not that hard with it just being Julie at this moment, but still.
Right. But it's interesting, again, like the competition doesn't come down to maybe the obvious. They're physical competitions, but they weren't like the most physical, big, strong, muscular guys, Judson's and Tashawn, or Ty, as he's now known, I think. It could be any.
It's whatever. Come on.
It's whatever. But it came down to Austin and Beth versus LaToya and Braden in this. And ultimately, Austin versus LaToya. And this went on for a bit. Kiefer was chirping on Austin. This would come back to be the cause, or just an easy reason for Austin to use to nominate Kiefer tonight. But this deal that they try to make, LaToya and Austin both want HOH. Neither wants to kind of give it up. And LaToya sort of makes a deal, but not really. How did you? Was this good gameplay by LaToya?
It's always good gameplay when you're in the final breath of it. Unless you feel like you have a massive advantage where you're not going to be put in a position, unless they want to take a shot at the weakest person, at the strongest person from that group. And in my opinion, it is LaToya from Team Defender. There's no reason why you wouldn't just do that. You can always renege. If you're
right.
Austin, you can renege. It's I don't have that many options, and you can turn around and say, "Hey, I'm not going to put you up, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, I have to backdoor you." Right? Or I gave you a fighting chance because I put you up, because you would tell her beforehand, obviously, if you have to do it, but you can totally. It's the second week. You totally can renege, right?
You could if you had to, and you could justify it, especially in this team setting. And I'm doing it for my team, and there's ways to spin this for sure.
Yeah.
But then it's also long-term reputation, I think, too, and how much people trust you, especially with the way that that Julie went out here, and what the narrative was around her, whether she could be trusted or not. And there's also Josh; he's not trustworthy.
Did you listen to any interviews from Julie, her exit?
I did. I watched the Taryn Armstrong Julie exit interview.
It is. I feel bad that I picked her. I feel bad.
Okay.
Because it seemed like she was honestly missing some tools to be successful in this game. What did I write down here? Didn't have a good sense of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Says if she was up, she would have put up Josh and LaToya. I'm like, what? What? I know, you're angry at Josh because you felt like he somehow kind of betrayed you, more or less. But if you were HOH, you would not put up Josh. There's no way. If
we should, whether Julie, my read on Julie, especially post exit interviews and things like that, is that Julie just isn't that aware of what's going on around her.
But Dave, they're on the same team. There's no it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No, she couldn't have put them up. But Julie was just mad that she's the first out, and she was like, no, Josh is the. It was like the two people at the bottom of the social pecking order were fighting over who was going to be on the bottom, instead of uniting and having each other's backs like would have been advantageous to each other, even if one goes out. Like, Julie just didn't look good all around. I don't think the way whether you like Josh or not is kind of beside the point.
Oh yeah,
He's not, I don't know if he's an interesting guy, and we'll talk about his version, what he's been up to on the live feeds. But
Dave, let me ask you a question: if it was anyone else besides Julie against Josh, you would think that Josh would be gone because they would have like a sense of how the game plays to rally people to get people.
It wouldn't take that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But the tools, Julie just wasn't comprehending well enough of what was going on around her in terms of the social dynamics. She had her version of events, and what the status quo wasn't quite on point. Like it happens. There's always kinds of players who, especially in the pre-seasons, they look like they're like, well, this person's got it all. Like they're charismatic. They got a great intro package. They seem to really do well in life and be successful. But then they get in the house, and for whatever reason, this is just not the environment where they're able to pick up on those things and read those things. Maybe because they don't need to all the time in their everyday life. Maybe they just deal with sincere people, and when they have to deal with less sincere people, it just doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like that's kind of the fun of the game. That's what casting kind of does. And
note number one.
But yeah, so Austin wins this whole HOH. I thought if LaToya, once she kind of knew she wasn't gonna be able to hold on and win, I think she should have just flat out made the deal. I just made it look like she dropped on purpose, but that was my only criticism of this. If you're going to lose, just make sure
you cannot drop out of this. Your team is already down, and you can already see the morale is low. You have to lose. You cannot give up, because if you give up, they're like, well, LaToya gave up. Like she made a deal with you and threw us to the wolves, to Austin, whereas she tried valiantly and she lost. Unfortunately, we're back into the middle of things. It's two different narratives, and it would have given Austin the ability to renege for sure against LaToya. It's like, hey, this is a team portion of the game, and you kind of looked out for yourself and threw your team under the bus. Unfortunately, the house wants you to be up for elimination, right? Not knowing exactly the dynamics of LaToya in the house, but still, or Toya now that I hear.
Toya?
Well, they were saying that in the episode. Everyone's getting a short name.
We got Ty. We got Toya.
Baby cakes for Beth.
Baby cakes. Who's? Yeah, I wrote that down. Who said baby cakes?
Oh,
but who called
Kyle.
that baby?
Kyle.
I wasn't sure if it was Rohan or Kyle.
Rohan ain't calling nobody baby cakes right now.
Yeah, Rohan seems to just be Kyle's sidekick playing pool.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just okay. So I got here, Austin. My question was, did LaToya make the deal? I agree with you, Jaemeel, that I think that the LaToya couldn't be shown throwing it for her team. It would have been suicide. So she had to try to win to the end. So this whole thing, but them trying to get each other to throw it was kind of a moot point then, because they're never going to do that. And then Kiefer is mopey is my next note. Just Kiefer, this is where I tuned in on the live feeds the other night, right after on Thursday. I was kind of seeing what was going on. This is where I first got the idea that Kiefer was not necessarily as liked or as in great of a position as maybe we had thought going into the live feeds. And I think it had something to do with this fact that Austin won the HOH, the fact that he was calling out or trying to distract her or get her to lose, and that's an easy reason for Austin to nominate him. So there could have been, I think, all those things, the fact that defenders, and there's only 6 choices for Austin to put up anyway. So Kiefer and Josh being those two that we'll see it here at the end. But
let's wait till the live feeds on that point.
Yes, we'll get fully into the live feeds, but yeah, that was kind of what I was sensing there too. And just kind of seeing LaToya and her. LaToya's, I'm trying to figure out if she's in a great position in this house or not. I think she's
in a great position. She people are saying that Beth is kind of in a good position. I think Latoya is in a good position because either she's working with people or they're afraid of her, right? And not afraid of her, like they're like, if we're gonna take a shot, we got to make sure we have the votes, right? Kind of talk, right? Where it's like, I don't think we have the votes this week, so we gotta leave it alone. We don't even want her to sniff that we are interested in her, right? That's a lot of power, right?
Would you say Latoya reminds you of Vanessa from BB17, who was like sort of kind of, I think like that's how I would describe her, as someone you're either working with or you're too afraid to go against.
Minus the manic type of.
Minus the manic panics and like just going after people.
She's not going to be crying in the room every 5 minutes.
No,
right?
her approach is different. She's more like confrontational and comes at you and more direct.
She's such a cop. I don't know why people aren't yelling cop at her. Like even
I
the
would
way
think she's a cop.
Stands, right? She's walking in like back straight, like chest out, like she's a peacock. Like this is.
You are either a cop or you're the superintendent of like the.
She looks like she's sizing up everyone. All right, like I feel like she's just ready to throw down. Right?
Yes. I feel that I just watching her on camera. I'm like, don't mess with her.
Scoop, inside scoop, not inside spoilers.
Scoop. She's no baby cakes. No,
she's no baby. I know someone who knows her or has interacted with her repeatedly. Wasn't
Latoya.
a perp. With Latoya, wasn't a perp, and they said, if you feel that she has a very kind of not pleasant attitude, well, it ain't for the show. It's real. Scoop.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I have a really good sense of who Latoya is, how she is in real life, how she's playing this game. She's not that hard to read, although I think that's her strength, is that she's not hard to read. You kind of know what's on her mind. You know, it's how she deals with things. And she's kind of a no-nonsense person. You're right. Like how they're not reading cop, if not already. I wonder if they will come to this realization or not. We'll see. It depends how good Latoya.
In your opinion, if you found out she was a cop, let's say week 3, are you looking to vote her out? Did you say just yes immediately?
I'm thinking about it. I would strongly consider it because I just think the cops in these, not just in Big Brother, but in these reality shows in general, tend to do well just because they tend to have like sort of an authoritative leadership esque sense to them. They know how to rally people. It's part of their training, generally speaking. So they want like the Tonys and the Officer Sarahs,
Officer Sarah.
I feel like a succubus. I'm sucking the energy out of them and I'm getting stronger. I love it. A succubus.
Derek, cops are.
There's Derek from BB16. Like not always. Sometimes they come in and they're not effective. But I think that Latoya it seems like more like a Derek, more like a Tony or a Sarah, who can kind of come in here and use these skills to their advantage. If they can't freak everybody out, sort of by scaring them into thinking that they're too authoritative and there's no way I can go against them. So I have to backdoor them at the right time. Like Latoya is something you take out in a double eviction. Like to me, she's not somebody I think I would want to hatch a plan against to get out in a standard week, unless it was really early and I knew I had the votes.
It's backdoor and you have the votes. I'm not letting her sniff the veto at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
But I can't win if I can't play.
You can't win if you can't play.
Very true. Like, there's no way. There's no way. I think she would beast through it. She would reveal herself, but she would beast through it for sure. And you would be gone the next week.
Yeah, I'm curious to see like Latoya compete for her life or have her back against the wall and how she reacts in that kind of a situation. That's going to be the test when Latoya does have to face some adversity. But I think she is overall in a good place. Or seems to be, even though she's on this team that's lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Just want to talk about, we had the Austin's HOH room sequence. Woo!
I can't stand people screaming like when they don't need to scream. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What about all these these sequences we had tonight in the OLG game room where they were sitting people down for some serious talks about who was going to be nominated, but then it was just a scare moment, Jaemeel. It was just who's just
They're putting a lot of work for Victoria in terms of like likability. They want people to like her a lot. That work, like she's putting in work in terms of like being a featured person on the show.
Victoria got a lot of airtime tonight. She even got to go to Wendy's. There was a lot going on. She had the Asiago,
Asiago chicken.
Asiago chicken, baked potato.
I'm not a fan of Wendy's beef patties. I can't stand it. Asiago chicken is where it's at for me personally. So
Yeah, I like the Wendy's beef patty. It's the never frozen, it's got some virtues, but yeah, it's also a little different. It's a different texture, I find too.
Yeah.
Than some of the other ones, maybe for better or worse.
Are you beef patty? Are you Wendy's beef patty dude? Do you like it?
I like it, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the fast foods. I'd say maybe I like the McDonald's still, believe it or not. Like
hey, I like cardboard too. It's cool.
Yeah, with the pickles and so you eat the sauces,
Yeah.
but it's But I do the keto style now, so it's a whole different mess. Yeah, but like we were talking about Victoria and all these. I guess we're going to continue to get these moments. I think it's part of the sponsorship because that's just kind of the part of Canadian game shows, everybody. We have paid sponsorship. Like the sponsors get integrated into these rooms, into these HOH and veto competitions and whatever. And it's all, I think it's fine. Like you would see like the same thing in like the Canadian version of Wipeout or the Canadian version of Are You Smarter Than a Grade Fiver, as we called it.
So what you're telling me is strategy to get more feature time on television, find the sponsorship room and just roll in there. Have wacky hijinks in there so you can kind of...
Yes, that's all this was. They were like, hey, cast, just go in there and like do some stairs in the room. It's fun. We'll make the sponsor happy. I keep trying to wrap my head around this idea that OLG sponsored this room, which is the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, because obviously this is a nationwide show, but Ontario Lottery is specific to just the province of Ontario, but it is a third of the country in Ontario, so it's good enough.
I think you can still win outside of the province, though.
Oh, is that true? Well, maybe that's awareness that they've raised here. Then maybe that it's even. I'm in marketing, so I have an appreciation for this. But I was, if that's the case, then
because I think you can just buy your tickets online. So,
that's a little sus.
We here. I wrote down the baby cakes thing. Rohan doesn't trust baby cakes or Austin. And I feel like Rohan's trying to keep Kyle away from these the ladies. He's like, no, Kyle, stay focused. No showmances. And we found out there wasn't a lot of showmances. There's maybe Tashawn and Beth, or Tashawn and Baby Cakes. And then we have potentially, what was the other one that might be happening?
What you mean, Jed and Victoria?
Jed and Victoria, but there's also maybe Jed and Austin is maybe a possibility, but also Jed and Braden is also a possibility, or is that just? I think that
no, I don't think that's a possibility. That's headcanon, dude. That's
what Braden would hope for.
Yeah. Austin and Kyle.
Yeah, I think that it's. I think that Beth, aka Baby Cakes. I can't stop. I'm sorry.
They're probably never going to reference it after
tonight, but
yeah.
I'm going to only do it from now on. But I think with her, she's kind of this interesting player, because I think that like Austin is a unique player too, in the fact that she's kind of in this place where she's aligning with people like Braden, who he's not the typical like sort of Alpha Alliance kind of alliance member. Like he's sort of we read him as more of an outcast or somebody who wouldn't necessarily fit in the preseason. He's doing a much better job of connecting with the house and sort of being in than I thought he would. He's obviously with Austin. It's fortunate that Austin's the HOH, coming off this week where he was also kind of aligned with Julie, but Julie went out here. So maybe the fact that Julie's gone, sometimes that can help you because people feel you're less of a threat because your person or one of your alliance members is gone now. So you're less of a priority versus other things that now have to be done. What what do you think of these dynamics and like where
So
this could go?
last week we saw Austin and Braden together with Julie, and I think that it really shows that that group wasn't really a group, especially in the eyes of the actual entire cast. Um, you heard that like Braden and Julie were really close, and even uh, this is slight spoilers, but it isn't really a spoilers. It's information that was revealed over the course of conversations in live feeds. But actually, Victoria, it isn't a spoiler. You could
Okay,
look it
okay,
up.
okay.
Victoria was actually really close to Julie as well, right? So it was Braden and Julie and Victoria and Julie, but it wasn't really shown on the air. So Julie did have some relationships, but it didn't necessarily pan out. So that dog group was just kind of people hanging out, and it got a segment, right? But you can see from that Austin trusts Braden and pulled him into her inner circle that she seemingly has with Beth. You can just see like a relaxed type of attitude when conversing with them. Um, and when you're seeing her interact with other people, like Keither was so awkward. That conversation was like you can just see from body language, even from Keither. Keither didn't have any like it didn't seem like he was relaxed or trusted her. Whereas Josh kind of looks like a sick dog and just kind of just lies there and gives up everything in terms of like he has no shame, right? He just
He's
wants
like,
a belly rub, right?
I know you're gonna throw me on the block, but maybe I won't be the target.
That's a little sus.
Ooh, sus. And Rohan at least looks like he's a competent player. Like from his videos, he does not seem like the egotistical, arrogant, jerky. I think he has a lot more self-awareness, and I freely admit that I misjudged his abilities, being my worst my worst pick of the draft. I felt that he was. I think that he might make it to week 5. Week 5 is my prediction for Rohan. I don't see him lasting long, but good for him.
I think Rohan's one of these guys who could be dragged a little further than we think. He's sort of like he's definitely he's like obviously in the conversation because Defender has only had these limited number of people eligible for eviction both weeks so far. And he doesn't have he the closest one he seems to be with is Kyle. I even wrote down here are Rohan and Kyle a pair? I don't even quite know, but if they are, or if I'm not, who else is Kyle potentially aligned with? He would seem to be aligned with like the Tashans and the Jetson group. Yeah, that seems, but we don't see a lot of that on the show. We don't really know how close he is with Baby Cakes. And we don't
Take a shot, everyone.
Take the shot. Take the shot in the comments, please. But Rohan's trying to pull at least Kyle away from Austin and Beth and the ladies. Don't go there. He was, but then we also saw here that Austin and Braden and Beth, they want to nominate LaToya was kind of what their thought was here tonight. So we talked about how LaToya was in this great place, but LaToya's name was getting thrown out here by these three. How does that bode well?
With no power. They're being talked about with people with no power. If Josh was saying that he wanted to get LaToya out, like LaToya would kind of just snicker and laugh.
But Austin has power.
Austin doesn't have power. Like the only power Austin has is to put up nominations. Once those nominations, that's power. And then once those nominations are set, she has more than enough votes to make sure she doesn't get voted out.
True. Yeah, but even going up at all is always not a good prospect because now there's a possibility things can shift, even under a false narrative. We know how quickly things can shift. So I don't think you ever want, like, yes, a good player can go up and survive such a thing. And if you do, great. It would only do well for LaToya's like resume, if you will. But I don't think you want that to happen unless it has to.
Like if LaToya goes up, she will most likely survive. And then the conversation will be for the next couple of weeks, anytime our names are bandied about, is, hey, I was already on the block. I survived. Why don't you put someone else up? Right. And she'll say, I already did my time on the block.
True. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, if you're going to go on the block, especially go up early. And if you, especially if you know you can survive it, but there has to be someone bigger next to you, a bigger target. I think it's probably Josh at this point, because everybody will go, yeah, I guess Josh can go, because he's not really ingratiating himself with anybody else. Nobody would want to get too close with Josh now, because he's sort of a pariah in the house. So
did you not see the reaction Austin had when Josh went to congratulate her on winning, and she was like doing everything she possibly could to get away from this man, and he had to walk in the
Okay, I gotta figure out, because I didn't talk about the live feeds that much, but when I turned on the live feeds the other night, like, they're all like sitting around talking about after this competition, and Josh, I could just hear Josh talking about like sex, gay, like all kinds of things, being a bot. Like, it was like in-depth stuff, and this is what came on right at the beginning of the live feeds. I was like, whoa, Josh, this is more depth than I was prepared to die. It was like the first 5 minutes I'm watching the feeds, and I was like, okay.
I bet if we get information, like if we go through the feeds in terms of his conversations, I bet it's going to be a lot of things like that, and not really going to be something that kind of connects individuals, like Victoria's conversation about the growing up in foster care. That's something that connects people, right? Not like,
yes, I just don't think Josh is in depth in like graphic descriptions. Maybe some people enjoy talking about some such things, but I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea. I couldn't tell who he was talking to at the moment. I thought maybe he was talking to Austin, actually, and I don't know if what her standpoints, but I got to look into that more.
She has never had a boyfriend.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna move on. With this whole, okay, we had this whole thing where the two captains had to be called out, Kiefer and I'm sorry, was it Tina, right? Yeah, and they had to pick this whole, like, it was kind of like in the Dark Knight, where the two ships, the Joker gives them both the key to blow each other up. There's like the convicts versus the regular civilians on the other boat. Yeah, the Gothamites, and which one, if they destroy the other, they'll live, but if neither of them do, they'll both blow up or something. And it was kind of like that scenario. And it kind of played out the same way, where they were like, no, they haven't blown us up and we won't blow them up. The blowing up in this metaphor would having to be eat slop for a week, and the reward was you got like a nice dinner together, or you got like.
So it is, if both people pick slop, then if both people pick steel, then they all get slop. If one picks steel and the other one puts share, then the person who put share would get slop, and the person who got steel would get an advantage and get a luxurious meal, and also great groceries for the week. And if both picks share, then they would get PB&J and milk and cookies for the week.
Okay, and that's ultimately what happened. So they all got PB&J and milk and cookies for the week,
which is very interesting, because I know you never watched Big Brother season 1, but they didn't have slop. Instead of slop, they had PB&J sandwiches. They had to change to slop because people were eating the PB&J so much that they had like sugar crashes, and it would like mess up the feeds. Like, people were lethargic, so they switched to slop. Right, that's the story. So they don't have that anymore.
No, yeah. So and the slop is. This slop looks different than the American slop. I gotta tell you, we didn't talk about that much in the other episode.
It's the same thing, dude. It is. It's oatmeal. It's
oatmeal protein powder, right? Is all it is.
It's classic oats. So it just matters how it's kind of put together. It looked like it was bigger oats, right? And they kind of loaded up on the protein powder. Honestly,
can it be that bad? Can it
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's kind of. You would have to add flavor to it, and that's what they're kind of talking about, like Kiefer doing weird stuff to kind of try to make it taste good. But it's exactly what you think it is.
It's just, I get it. It's like eating cardboard, or even more than like a McDonald's patty, perhaps. But yeah, like, okay, like but I think that this this whole sequence tonight, just because of how it played out. Okay, interesting experiment. I don't think they should. If this is going to repeat itself in any way, I think that just
You can't do it again. You can't do it again.
don't do this again.
Yeah.
It picked some time here, but I'd rather see more of these conversations. It was interesting to see like Tara and the others be a little bit more vicious, but we also we talked about Victoria was on the show quite a bit tonight. She talked with Sean or Ty about her growing up in foster care. I met some other kids growing up who lived in foster care group homes. I know it's not it's not fun. It was I do think that these reality shows, when they do connect me with who these people really are and their stories and the things like that, I do enjoy it, because I feel like this is a show about people, and specifically this Canadian version. I kind of Canadians, and she's from Hamilton. She's just from the next city over for me. So it was did you enjoy this sequence with her? Like, it was a little less of the party Victoria, a little bit more of the human Victoria.
I think that they have a lot of hopes for her, and that's why you see that much focus. She is one of the people who are in charge of the narration of this season, so they already have her put in place. They've kind of put that she's fun, and at the same time she has depth, and she is good at competitions because she won the first competition. Her name's not really being bandied about of anything negative being said about her. So I think that they have high hopes for her. Once the team game is over, I don't necessarily know where she'll be.
Yeah, I just don't know if she's got the I just don't know if people are going to want to rely on her.
Unless she keeps winning keeps winning competitions.
Yeah, I think she's fun to be around. It's going to come down to whether you go to versus somebody else. I think Victoria's a good option to keep as an alliance member and somebody you can work with long term. I think that's how I would be looking at her if I was in the house, and I could form some kind of connection with her. But I might be more inclined to work with somebody like Austin, even, or somebody like certain players, like even Jedson, or just people I thought I might just think are a little bit more boring, but maybe a little less gossipy, a little less likely to maybe spread information.
I just feel like if I had a choice, and let's say that Austin, Victoria, and LaToya all won the same amount of challenges at HOHs, I would think that I could beat Victoria more than I can beat the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's not because it seems like she's less physical or less capable. I think that in a battle of personalities, I think that Victoria is more likely to do something that's grating on people, that people won't be able to get over, as opposed to Austin, who seems very reserved in terms of the image that she's putting out, versus LaToya, that is very matter of fact, the term that he used. I think people will, unless LaToya does something where her integrity is questioned, I don't want to see her in the end, nowhere near the end. So I think Victoria would be the person that I would want to align with, because I feel like there is more options in terms of me getting rid of.
Oh,
I have to turn off that. It's a setting when someone tweets something. It will turn off eventually.
No worries. Yeah. Well, so Victoria, and whether somebody. Well, okay. Who would be likely to be annoyed by her in this house? Who do you think doesn't enjoy living with Victoria?
Who doesn't like living with LaToya? Victoria.
Victoria? Oh, LaToya.
Oh, who? Okay, you're saying who would be? Oh, you know what? Both work. Whatever direction.
They mutually dislike each other. You're
Yes.
saying, okay, and they don't like living with each other. And once one can get the other out, they will.
I believe so.
Okay. So let's keep an eye on that, because they're not on the same team. No, they're not on the same team. But LaToya has connections, and I think they are competing for some of the same alliance members. I think that's what I think that's kind of the story of the season. I think this 14 number cast is actually good because I think we're seeing more people trying to gather numbers from the same places versus like a 16 person season where I guess that there's a couple of weeks of just like, I don't know, we got to get out so and so, but I feel like there's just not as many people going around here.
I think it's going to be a tight narrative. What we're going to see there is a tight narrative. It's not going to, like, they're going to hit jury so quick, right? And you're going to see there's not going to be that slog where it's like, how many days until jury? Oh, it's not this one. I don't think we're going to get triple eviction this season.
No,
I think
we'll be lucky if we see one double.
Yeah, I think one double, which is fine to me, just as long as it's more or less in the middle. But like, this is the type of season, especially with the amount of people, that you kind of put a little bit more effort in the challenges. I better see a pressure cooker. If I don't see a pressure cooker this season, I will be disappointed.
Yeah.
Pressure cooker is one of my favorite competitions in all of reality television. I want to see it. I want to see like, you'll see like Victoria and Latoya and some of these alphas really pushing themselves because they don't want to lose, especially if it's near like a pivotal moment, right? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, like I agree with you. I was like, I don't have a great comment back on that, but I'm with you on all of that. We talked about Victoria. We talked about her foster conversation. We talked about her getting the Asiago chicken sandwich. We talked about her foster mom always got the baked potato.
Baked potato. All the fixings.
I can smell it.
You sure can. We talked about this whole who's kind of loving who. Okay, and will we see the Beth to Sean showmance become a thing? Do you think?
I think lock it in.
Lock it in. Ship that.
Yeah, I don't ship it, but I think it's definitely a thing.
I think it's definitely a thing.
Are you digging Beth?
Am I digging her? Like, would I have a showmance with her? Is that what you're asking? Or no?
Sorry, Dave, you are happily
married. Of course, I'm married. I thought you were speaking hypothetically, but
are you digging her overall, like in terms
as a player?
Like,
I don't know what to. I think so. I think that Beth has. I think that she seems to be well liked in the house, and I think she seems to have a lot of connections, and so I think that she's probably in a decent enough spot. What I've seen of Beth is been all good. I haven't seen anything that has made me dislike her or say that's not great for you, or I don't think you have a future here. So yeah, I think that's a solid pick. I can't remember who owns her in the pool, but not you. No, I think Beth. I think is one of the better players. Beth is owned by Jen. She was taken 9th overall in our draft.
Yeah. Seems like a good pick now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure. Like I'm. It helps that her team has just been dominant. I think all these Destiny players look really great right now because they can play so comfortably. They don't have to worry at all about being a renom at all. Like they can just they've had 2 weeks off basically, right? Yeah. Having this safety. So once those players who have had safety for so long are finally in danger, then we'll see what kind of players they are.
Do you think in the 4th week they're going to have it so if, let's say, Team Destiny wins, then whoever is HOH has to pick someone from their team to be on the block?
Well, I think, like, especially if Destiny were to win this 3 in a row, like a pagonging, if you will, then okay, like I think you can end this team twist probably after 3 weeks, and then hope because you're kind of create a de facto minority just in whoever was on that team that was not doing as well, because people want to stick with the comfortable. Hey, we were safe for all those weeks. Let's keep that going. That was working. That would just be natural for the majority, and once that's what the house will now want, effectively, because that's the collective will. So, yeah, I don't think so overall, but
okay.
Tina, we didn't talk much about her.
She's on the show.
She's on the show. She wanted to win HOH. She didn't. That's it. Austin, we talked about. Latoya, we talked about a lot. Tashawn, a little bit. Kiefer, enough. We went over Julie.
I still like Kiefer. I still like if Kiefer gets eliminated, I will be sad.
Me too, but I'm not liking Kiefer as much as I did from what I've seen here. Just
Okay.
like,
but also to your earlier point, saying about how you don't feel bad for him because he never talked game with Austin. Austin never talked game with him either. So I felt that if you approach the conversation not already kind of defeated, but like a little bit more upbeat or like kind of like bridging that relationship. It's like, hey, well, you're HOH. We never really talk game. Like I haven't talked to you. You haven't talked to me. Let's change that. Let's swap ideas, as opposed to like coming in with his tail between his legs, kind of like mopey. His body language where he's like not on the bed, but kind of on the bed. Like he's just about to like jump off and like head to the door in case something happens. He had very terrible body language, which he needs to change because he looks like he's like going to die. Like
I completely agree. Kiefer's body language in this house is very, very bad. I don't know if he's aware of it. He doesn't do it all the time. He does it at certain times. Clearly when he's uncomfortable, when he's not feeling pretty good in a situation. I don't know why he acts this way, but it's not serving his game very well. Is sort of the net result here. And I hope he can kind of get over that. What I observed in those live feeds of him was just that he's a bit defensive. He's not necessarily going to deal with adversity super well, or what a role with sort of like being on the block. We're going to see Wednesday sort of how they're going to show that on the show, how he kind of reacts to being nominated, how he'll feel about that, what he will and will not say about his fellow nominee Josh throughout the course of this, and how the veto is going to play out. But Kiefer's got some work. It's great that he's popular and he had this captain thing, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to win the game right now.
I bet Suzette was popular too, but she got first eliminated. First situation? No, she was second eliminated, right?
Yeah, sometimes being popular means nothing in terms of longevity in this game.
Yeah.
We talked about Beth. We talked about Victoria. Jedson. Everyone seems to love Jedson. Everyone, not you, but Jane owns him in the draft, and everyone either wants to be in a relationship with him or an alliance with him or both. Tara, we didn't see a ton of her tonight. She seems to be liked, but not necessarily in with the main, like, I think, buzz of the game. I'm not liking, and she's not in enough conversations, I don't think. And I own her in the draft. I'm not feeling super confident about Tara at this time.
Well, if she's not a main target, then, or in negative conversations, laying low at the beginning of the game, not necessarily the worst thing.
It's not the worst thing. Yeah, I just, in terms of like, we'll see. Like, I think her stock is low right now, but I think like she could go high. Her potential to rise up is very good. Her downside is almost non-existent at the moment.
Yeah.
Rohan, Rohan's kind of like this. He's kind of like a floater, sort of sidekick that has attached himself to Kyle. Although I'm not sure who Kyle's attached to or what Kyle's doing or what agency he has. But Rohan is there for the moment, and then as we mentioned, Braden, there's just Braden left, and Braden, as we said, he's doing better than we thought.
Yeah.
He's because of his connection with Austin here. I think he's looking better this week and has a position of strength that he maybe wouldn't have if anybody else had won HOH.
Sure. Very true.
So good for Braden. And that's all the cast. We get these nominations. They were a little sus. Who is okay? And we can get into spoilers in a minute. But did you think these were the right picks for Austin?
It was the obvious picks. There was no other picks for her to take.
Who else
Like,
could she like her putting up Latoya here would have just been
no.
why bother?
Latoya
You're
would have
gonna-
came off the block and like eviscerated her the next week. No,
It wouldn't have been pretty. No.
Yeah.
So, Jedson, obviously, there's no good reason to do it. And who else is there left? Just Rowan.
Braden, which is
Braden.
person close, and Rohan.
Yeah. Who I think is like the renom option right now. I think if one of these two comes down, Kiefer or Josh, I think Rohan goes up. I think that those three know that they're sort of at the bottom of the pecking order, especially considering Austin's calling those shots. But do we have any spoiler information, Jaemeel, to share? We do. Okay, well let's play the sound effect. Is we're going to talk about spoilers, and if you're leaving us at this part of the show, we hope you'll join us on Wednesday night, talk about the veto episode where we're going to be covering these things. But we're just going to be kind of talking about who won the veto. What can we kind of expect this week ahead? So here is your warning.
I missed it. I missed that. All right.
Jaemeel.
Where do we start? Do we just cut the cord and just say who won the veto? I should say who was in the veto first. Who was in the veto? Who played? So the people who were picked for the veto were Tara, Tina, Victoria, along with Josh and Kiefer. No HOH in the veto.
So that's fitting with that was what they introduced that in Big Brother Canada 8 for the all 3 weeks we got of that show, and that the HOH doesn't compete in the veto. Do you like this?
Once again, HOH after the noms has zero power.
But normal in the traditional Big Brother they would always play in the veto, and they often win the veto, or at least a good amount of at least 1 out of 6 times at least. And so this is a different twist on the Canadian version, but I think winning your safety is kind of the whole point, right?
Yeah. Or at least putting the pressure on the individuals who aren't on the blocks to make a decision at the same time. So
it's only 5. Just the 5.
It's only 5. Let's see: Tara, Tina, Victoria, Josh, and Kiefer.
Okay, so do we know anything about the competition?
No, I don't. But I know who won.
Okay, all right. Let's get to it. Who won?
Kiefer has secured safety
for
the week.
Oh, Kiefer.
Yep.
Oh, good old Kiefer. Okay, so Kiefer.
That's a little sus.
Yeah, I don't know how did he do it. So okay, then is Rohan now the
has to be? They haven't done noms yet. I believe
it hasn't happened yet. Could it be anybody but Rohan?
Honestly, for Austin, I don't think that wouldn't be smart. I think she would get too much blood in her hands. It's you put up Rohan and you get rid of Josh.
She was willing to put these people on slop just so she wouldn't have to renominate anybody, right? Like she entertained that prospect initially.
She can kind of disperse the blame amongst the group, but when you're head of household and you're making that decision when you're kind of forced to, literally she has one person to choose from unless she convinces the 3 others that are left over.
Yeah, there's no incentive for her to do that. Unless like Jedson came to her and says, "Put me on the block. It will definitely be Josh who goes, and then I'll win this. I'll win favor." But I think if I was Jedson, I don't think that would be a smart thing. I think that the risk is not worth the reward. If you survive the week on the block, yes, it will pay off for you in the game. You will likely make it a jury or even beyond that without even having to face the block again, because you can always say you did your time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go up there and people go, "Oh, this is the week to get rid of Jedson. When are we getting another shot at Jedson?" I just think that's too likely. So yeah, okay, let's assume it's Rohan, and then do you think it's Josh that
it's a lock? Josh is gone. He has not built the relationships to be able to stay, right? Mm-hmm. And if let's say by chance he forged relationships with Austin, then who's in that group? It's Austin, Victoria, Beth and Braden, where HOH can't vote So like they're still left with like little to no power at all. Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like nobody benefits from keeping Josh in this game next week, right? Nobody.
Nobody. No, he is pack your bags. He's gone unless someone does something so stupid, right? And even then, if someone did something stupid, let's say it was uh, Tara did something stupid, she can't be nominated, right? So it doesn't matter, right? You
Right.
literally have like only three other options to choose from.
Yeah, like even if like let's say Tara was to like destroy all the food, or she was to do something that would hurt the entire house, she can't even be nominated. Like even before they could do the most idiotic thing before the nomination ceremony, it could hurt them next week, maybe not. So maybe not even then. So then that's kind of like the tough part about this is that maybe it should just be the winning HOH. But it would make no sense if you wanted to put up a member of your own team, right? Like,
Yeah. Unless they're just detrimental to the team.
yeah, assuming that they were even to keep this team format into next season. Like, do you feel like it's working so far? Do you feel like this thing is?
I think that it's going to be an acceptable twist because it's not going to last long enough to impact the end game as much as it like could have.
Yeah, it will depend how much more further they take it from here, and it will also depend on like if you get like a back and forth with the two teams winning, then it's probably fine. But the way this is going,
Okay.
we need to see Defender win. Anything else from the spoilers?
Only for day one. So Josh was going to be eliminated last week, but at the last minute there was a blow up with Julie, and was it Latoya was the one who was the driving force to get Julie eliminated. She did not have a conversation with Victoria. That's why Victoria was out of the loop and voted for to keep Julie. There's a supposed alliance, right? The alliance is called the Sunsetters. In this alliance, you have Latoya, Teener, Ty, Jed, Beth, and one other person. Kiefer.
That's an interesting alliance.
3 and 3 on each side. 3 and 3 on each side. So
from
there's
each
three,
team.
Yeah, 3 Defenders and Destiny. So when Latoya's talking to Kiefer saying that we have the votes, when you think about with this 5, right? Technically, they do.
Well, that's interesting. I hope that is something that we get to see on the show, because that's an unexpected 5. That would, or 6, yes. I suppose it is.
So
right?
I didn't want to spoil it, but Beth is in a lot better position because she has ties to both Austin and the other side with Latoya. So,
oh yeah, I think Beth can go a lot of different ways in terms of who she can play with long term, what alliances. Like depending on who wins HOH, Beth can kind of go with the wind. It seems to be. Like I wish I had a little bit more intel on that, but that's what I'm kind of observing.
If Latoya won HOH, do you know who her noms would be? Do you want to guess?
Latoya would put up Austin and Kiefer.
No.
Remember,
Kiefer's on her team.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking she could put up anybody, but all right.
Okay, it would be Tara, Kyle, or Victoria.
Tara, Kyle, Victoria.
So Rohan and Kyle seem to be working together, as we've seen. They keep on referring. This is day 6, mind you, folks. It could have changed. About the 4 of us. So many people believe that it's Jed and Ty, but at the same time, Jed and Ty is with the Sunsetters, so they can kind of be double dipping, or they can possibly pull 2 extra votes with Kyle and Rohan if necessary to bump their votes from 6 to 8 right there. Okay. What else? So Victoria, Braden, and Austin are very close. Austin's target, as we've seen, is Kiefer. Victoria was thinking of giving Rohan the Wendy's to have her with Wendy's. So it's
Instead of
interesting.
Victoria,
Yeah. To kind of
because why?
To draw him in as a number, because as you can see, she wasn't lying when she said that she gets good vibes from Rohan. So that's why she didn't want to put him up. So
I don't think Austin should trust Rohan at all. I don't
think so either. I think
Yeah.
Victoria is a better choice for her.
Absolutely. I don't think Rohan seems like a guy who's gonna be loyal to Kyle and whoever
himself.
and himself,
Yes.
and that's it. Like,
So
I'm actually surprised how well Rohan's doing at fitting in with the group. When I watch the feeds, he's just with Kyle all the time, and Kyle's just always with Beth and with Austin, and they're always so Rohan's always kind of there.
So what happens if Kyle leaves? What's going to happen to Rohan?
Rohan's destroyed if
Yes.
Kyle were to leave.
All
Like,
right.
if they were to put up Kyle next to Rohan, I wonder who would go, but probably Kyle.
Okay, so let's put like and dislike. Victoria does not like Latoya. Braden does not like Tara. Austin is fond of Jed. Okay. Austin is fond of Jed. Right?
Yes.
So much so that Braden's like, what's going on with you two? Okay.
Oh.
And Braden and Victoria don't mind Rohan.
Braden and Rohan don't mind Victoria.
No, Braden and Victoria don't mind Rohan.
Don't mind him.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone loves Rohan.
That's the thing. But if you're down in numbers, that's why like Rohan is in such a good spot.
Because he's non-objectionable, he seems like, but he's not necessarily anybody who is like attached to either.
But at the same time, people like him, but not love him to say that they would fight to make sure that he's still in the game.
Well, then good for Rohan, my fellow Pisces, who is trying to represent us Pycons in there. Yeah, I don't have him in the draft. He went very late.
Second
He's
last.
owned by-
Second
He went
last.
second last, taken by Amanda. Yes, she wanted Rohan more than Braden. I don't know.
Which is interesting now.
Okay, well, is that it for the feeds? And
That's it
anything
right
on
now for the
Academies?
feeds. We're gonna I'm gonna have a lot more come on Wednesday.
Okay, well then I think we're going to wrap up here for Big Brother Canada 9's third episode, the first true HOH and true nominations of this season. This was a lot of fun to break this down and talk more about this cast, which I think is a lot. I got a ton of potential here. There's a lot of different dynamics, and I think this is I think casting should be happy with how this is playing out so far.
I would agree.
And we'll be back here on Wednesday to talk about this veto. Well, of course, we saw here Kiefer will take himself down, and we'll see, and then we'll see probably Rohan go up, and we're gonna see how that ball plays out. And we'll be able to speculate a bit more about what's going to happen with this Thursday second live. Was it live eviction, or I guess it's just the second eviction in this case here?
Taped to live.
Taped to live. It was live when they taped it.
Yeah.
On Thursday as well. So we'll be here Wednesday and Thursday on Super Mader Brothers Podcasting, YouTube and Facebook live streams, all after 9 p.m. or as late as it needs to be for the show to end. We also have our other channels, which are Live Long and Podcast, where we talk about Star Trek all this week. I'm talking with Jaemeel. I think 4 out of these 5 nights this
4
week.
to 5.
Yeah.
Oh no, 5 out of 5.
Are you on Wednesday too? We're on Big Brother though. We're on Big Brother on Wednesday. But
Friday.
I'm thinking like there's Live Long in Podcast World and Super Mader Brothers Podcast
Friday.
World. Friday, we also have here on Super Mader Brothers Podcasting. I forgot before we talk about Live Long and Podcast, we're gonna be here Friday to talk about WandaVision's first, maybe only season. We're not quite sure. As we're going to be starting our Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast series, as that will become a new pillar of the Super Mader Brothers podcasting. It's something I've been wanting to podcast about for a long time. And now that these Disney Plus TV shows are coming out, we're going to start by maybe not covering every episode of these shows, but talking about the collective series of episodes. And this will be the first one, WandaVision. We expect to do Falcon and Winter Soldier when that wraps up in their run, and then Loki will be coming out after that. We're going to be busy with those. But the good thing is that we'll be doing them sort of in smaller podcast sets, as we'll be talking about them all at once. And so check that out. Friday night, Jaemeel, Ashley, and I talking about the whole first season of WandaVision. I think Ashley starting tonight and trying to get through all the episodes. She was just like, I haven't watched any of it. I'm not watching any of it until right before. So she's gonna be fresh when she comes in on Friday. And Live Long and Podcast, Star Trek, as I mentioned, on Tuesdays, we do Deep Space Nine rewatches. We're in season 3. We're doing Equilibrium tomorrow night, which is a Jedzia Dax episode. Check that out at 9 p.m. On Wednesday, we're talking about original series with my dad, Ted. And the next episode we're doing is called Assignment Earth, which is the most non-Star Trek episode ever. So if you don't like Star Trek, maybe this is the one to check out on Wednesday night at 7. Is Adam, Jody, my dad, and Jeff and I will be talking about Assignment Earth with Gary Seven and some kind of weird cat that was a kind of a crossover or something. I don't even know what's going on. Find out Wednesday. And our other channels, Trivial Debates, where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more. That's a monthly show. We do that on Sundays. We'll be doing one at the end of March. Jaemeel is reigning champion. We did that at the end of February. So check that all our different channels and our content. We're podcasting almost every night on a live driven stream. So I think that's it. I think I plugged everything.
Yeah.
We hope you had it. I need a sign off, man. I haven't.
Everybody's watching. You don't know who's watching.
I don't have that.
Carissa Cox.
That's kind of sign off. Okay. No.
Okay.
Oh no, this would work.